Welcome to our farmhouse for this snowy feast of St. Nicholas. We just celebrated the feast of St. Nicholas. It's on December 6th, but we celebrated on the 7th because it was a Saturday and my husband could be there. And we decided that this year we were going to have a great big Christmas celebration and feast on this feast day, and this would be the day that we celebrate giving and opening presents. Maybe you can tell in my voice or by my red nose in the video footage, but I have been sick. I am still sick. It has been over a week now, and our family has gone through this sickness with the congestion, the runny nose, the ear pain, throat pain. And every time I have any sort of illness at all, I am just reminded of how grateful I need to be when I feel good, or when I really just feel nothing and you just kind of go about your day-to-day life, because the energy that I normally have was wiped from my body and my house just slowly became a complete disaster. So it's interesting to always see how things kind of fall apart when the mom is sick at home. And it just really shows me how important being a stay-at-home mom is, being a homemaker really is. This video is going to be about making a Christmas feast and making it from scratch. And I am doing it by myself because our family lives 14 hours away. So for both Christmas and the Feast of St. Nicholas, we are just going to have our immediate family. And so if you are someone who is primarily in charge of your Christmas dinner, or maybe it's just your family, you can do it. This is my encouragement to you. And always remember that things don't have to look Pinterest perfect. It doesn't have to look Instagram worthy. You will see that the food that I make definitely does not win any awards by how it looks or how I photograph it. But I made it from love, and that's what makes it special. And that's what makes your Christmas meal special too. You whisk that up.
What is this? What are we making?
Yep, whisk it up.
Tell me, what are we not making in this bowl? Oh, you did all this. I need to put this up.
You keep whisking. You ready? Ooh, girl. Right in the middle. All right, ready? That's too big. Now hold it. Now take this hand. Take this hand. Push it down. Yay! Good job. Yep, so just put one in, and then put the other one in here. And we're gonna go melt this. My little daughter is helping me prepare a few things the day before. So this is actually Friday the 6th, and then we will celebrate tomorrow the 7th, as I mentioned earlier. But we wanted to get ready the cinnamon roll casserole, which is what we are making right now. We got ready this frozen ice drink that you put the ice into the bowl the next day and it creates punch, and then also the spiced cake with eggnog frosting. We prepared the cake. It would have been better to make the cake that day, but again, because I was sick, it just made more sense to get as much prepared beforehand as I could. Earlier, you saw me adding some drinks into that mold. It's a cake mold, and then I put it in the freezer, and then I'm going to pop it out tomorrow, throw some more drinks on top of it, and it becomes this cinnamon cranberry apple drink. It's really good. My kids loved it, and I just left it out pretty much all day because there was a giant ice circle shape in it. It stayed cold and it was really nice. So if you are someone who is hosting a bunch of people, that would be a really good and easy thing to put out so that people have access to the drink all day.
Put my hands on here.
Yep.
Me?
Yep.
Me?
Yep. That's all you.
Me, my
Yep, can you knead it? Yep, get it. Mm-hmm.
Now you?
You do it. John, Brady, get into it. Push it, move it around. Grab it from the bottom. Flip it over. Now push. Yep.
Now flip it over.
Yep, you can flip it over. Scoop it around. And scoop it in a ball. Wow, look at you go, girl.
What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping, whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch are keeping? This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary.
We just finished up with the cinnamon roll dough. This is for the cinnamon roll casserole. I wanted to do something a little bit different than just traditional cinnamon rolls, so I thought a casserole would be such a good idea. And then in the morning when we come down, I can just pop that in the oven, and while it's baking, it only baked for 25 to 30 minutes depending on how hot your oven runs, but ours took 25 minutes, and while it was baking, we opened up the stockings, and our stockings were very minimal. I'll talk about that in just a bit. But as that dough is rising, my daughters and I are now working on the spice cake. And as I mentioned before, this would have been so much better the day of. But again, I wanted to get as much prepared as I could. I actually made the frosting the next day, and that is a mixture of cream cheese and butter. And so I tried to stick it in the fridge to let it solidify a little bit. But if I would have done it overnight, it would have been really hard. And then I would have had to take it out of the fridge, let it kind of thaw, if you will, for a little bit so that it doesn't just tear the cake. And for this cake, I did make it gluten-free for my daughter, and I usually make 2 if I do that, but we really like oat flour, so it was really good. The thing with oat flour is it's going to act a little bit different than regular flour, obviously. And so it did come out of the pans a little bit harder. And when I tried to force one of the cakes out of the pans, it actually cracked a whole edge off and then it crumbled. So it was super frustrating. So my recommendation, if you're using kind of crappier pans like I am, I put some butter down, or my daughter put butter down. I would definitely add a little bit of oil, especially if you are using a flour other than bleached all-purpose. My other mistakes with these cakes is I wanted to wrap them up in some beeswax paper, so I stacked them on top of each other. And when I stacked the top one on top of the bottom, obviously because the top is going to be more curved, it kind of split or cracked the top cake. And you will see that in the upcoming clips, which it wasn't a big deal. It's no big deal that the cake is cracked, but it's just, one of those frustrating aspects. So oat flour works really well, easier to digest. The cakes were beautiful. Definitely just add a little bit more oil to your pan. Also, don't take out your cake when they're too hot or warm. Let them cool. So I'm just treating these cinnamon rolls like normal. I'm rolling them out, adding butter, brown sugar, and cinnamon. I roll them back up, and then I cut them into little chunks. Once I put them in the 9x13 pan, I just pour a custard over top for kind of the filling and to help make the casserole. I baked this at 350 degrees for 25 minutes. Double check yours. It might need to go in for 30 minutes. And then I actually had mine in the fridge the night before. That way in the morning, I could just pop it in the oven. The mistake that I made was once I took it out of the fridge, I never kind of mixed it back up or stirred it up. So all of the egg custard filling just kind of went to the bottom. So it did create kind of an eggy layer on the bottom. But if I would have just taken my hands or a spoon, mixed it all back up, it wouldn't have done that. For this Christmas meal, we are doing a roast. I actually put on 2 roasts, mashed potatoes, gravy, mixed fruit, a Christmas tree shaped garlic, herb, cheesy bread rolls. Then in the morning, we did this cinnamon roll casserole. We have the punch. And then for dessert, the eggnog frosted spice cake. For the custard filling, I'm just doing some heavy cream, vanilla, eggs, and cinnamon. If you are interested in any of these recipes, you want the exact measurements and directions, I did create a comfort food little mini recipe book. I did this as a way to help raise some money for my channel. I have yet to take any sponsorships. I have not taken any donations. I'm not necessarily asking for donations, but I do want to provide some higher quality footage. So I want a nicer camera. Obviously, those are super expensive. So any money that I get from this little miniature cookbook, if you will, is just going to be directed towards trying to better my channel, the quality of it. And so thank you if you purchase, but all of those recipes will be on there. And then of course, I already have the traditional cinnamon roll recipe that I have linked down below. So you won't necessarily need that one.
Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to you, O Israel.
It is the morning that we are celebrating the feast of St. Nicholas, and although my kids are so excited to get started, I am just preparing the rolls. This is my typical bread dough recipe that I make for everything. I make it for my sandwich loaf breads, my artisan breads, for rolls, for buns. I will also have that linked down below. This is just my favorite go-to recipe, and so I just want the dough to be rising as we are opening gifts and just spending time together as a family. You can see what my cinnamon roll casserole looks like. The dough didn't necessarily rise in the fridge because the dough didn't really rise in the fridge, which that's kind of what the fridge does, is it pauses that rise time. And so don't feel like if you take your cinnamon roll, bake, casserole, whatever you want to call it, out of the fridge and you're thinking that everything needs to be risen and big and puffy. It doesn't. It will puff up when you bake it. But again, if you do have it sit in the fridge overnight, make sure you stir it up so that you don't have this egg settlement at the bottom.
And be yourself, our King of peace. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to you, shall come to you, shall come to you, O Israel.
After shaping my dough into a ball, I allow it to rise in a warm place, which is on top of my oven, because I do have my cinnamon roll bake in the oven. The top of the stove is warm, and so I'm just going to let my dough rise on top of it, and then I'm just going to be making my cream cheese, butter, powdered sugar mixtured frosting. This is the best for cinnamon rolls. I love a mix of a buttercream and a cream cheese. And so I softened both of those and added in 4 cups of powdered sugar. I did a splash of vanilla and just a dash, a touch, a few drops of almond, and I whisked that until it was smooth. After my cinnamon roll bake was done, I have a gluten-free one in there as well. I allowed it to cool for about 10 minutes before icing it. I have made this mistake and have learned from it. If you do not allow your cinnamon rolls to cool some, your icing will just melt. For those who may be wondering why we are doing kind of a Christmas celebration on the Feast of St. Nicholas, well, last year we did little stocking stuffers to celebrate who St. Nicholas actually was, not Santa. We don't do Santa, but I thought this is the perfect time to put all of our gifts into the stocking or around the tree. And that will really eliminate the thrill and the excitement and honestly the distraction of presents on Christmas. And this is going to be very controversial. Sorry if you hear Judah. This is going to be very controversial to many people. But my husband and I really have felt the conviction. And even as a kid, I remember going to my grandma's house to celebrate Christmas the night before. We always did presents on Christmas Eve. And I remember sitting in the car very distinctly thinking, I know I should be excited about the birth of Jesus, but I'm so much more excited for gifts. And so I want to try to eliminate that by doing gifts and really celebrate how beautiful giving is and how we are getting these beautiful things from God because He has gifted us with the blessing of money to be able to pay for these gifts. And doing that on the Feast of St. Nicholas just seemed way more appropriate, and then is allowing us to have a whole Christmas feast where we are going to just celebrate the birth of Jesus, and we're not going to have this distraction of gifts and giving and doing presents. And I know that it has been a tradition for many. I know it's a tradition in my own family and my husband's family, but if we are honest with ourselves, gifts are a big distraction, and that's what kids and honestly a lot of adults focus on for Christmas. And so we are now going to be doing that on December 6th or whatever weekend it falls on, and really celebrating St. Nicholas and what it means to give. And then on Christmas, really focusing on both the coming of Jesus as He came, incarnate as a human being, as a baby, but then also preparing for His second coming and really focusing on, okay, what are we doing now in our hearts, in our minds, in our actions, in our words to prepare for Jesus to come again. I would love to know what you guys are doing for Christmas to celebrate Jesus and not do presents. I would love to know what you guys do for Christmas to celebrate Jesus. My plan is we are going to bake Him a cake. We are going to sing songs, read the Bible, really talk about preparing our hearts. And especially as my kids get older, it will be a lot easier for us to go out into the community, to bring meals to people, to serve at soup kitchens, help the homeless. Obviously, these are things that I hope our family can do throughout the year and not just, oh, it's Christmas, time to serve other people. But I think that as we prepare for Jesus, as we remember Him coming into the world to save us from our sins, this is a perfect time for us to also serve, to also give. And a lot of times I think when we're in this Christmas spirit and Christmas mode, we just have this grand heart to give our children just the best day ever, which is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. That's not a bad thing. That's beautiful. I want that for my kids too. But really thinking about, why did Jesus come into this world? Why did He humble Himself? Why was He born in a stable, laid in a manger to be food for the world? And how can we take that Christmas message and bring it out into the world? And so this is obviously something that my husband and I will be working on. It's a process, but I would love any ideas that you guys have, that you do, that's very special, maybe a really special tradition in your family, something that you have been doing. I would love to hear from you. So by this point, I have made the cinnamon roll bake. I'm getting the punch ready. I've just prepared it. I totally meant to buy cranberries for this, and I bought cherries, but I would throw a bunch of cranberries in as well. Now I'm just making the frosting to go on top of the spice cake. I have the rolls all prepped. I have the butter herb sauce on top. I put mozzarella cheese in the middle as you saw me roll them up. I baked that at 415 degrees for 10 minutes. And then you can just pull them apart. I left the bottom ones, if you noticed, kind of the bark, if you will, of the tree without the butter herb sauce, because if you don't put anything on the roll, it will darken. And so I wanted that part of my Christmas tree rolls to be darker. I also didn't put cheese in them for my kids, who I'm trying not to give dairy. And now for the gravy, I am just taking all of the drippings from the roast. I did add some onion powder, some garlic salt, And then this is just a mixture of water and cornstarch. Again, you can't add cornstarch to anything hot. It will just ball up. If you want it to be dissolved and work and function as it should, it has to be mixed with a cool liquid first. So that's what I did. And then I just boiled it onto the stove until it thickened. Now I have just iced the cake. I'm adding on these little stars, and then our feast is ready to be eaten.
Jesus, Lord, at thy birth.